every generation has trends, and quiet quitting may be quite a dangerous one for many reasons. For those of you who are unacquainted, there is a new practice that is especially popular amongst Gen Z, although I think this phenomenon has been around for a very long while, called quiet quitting. Now, what this means is, this means that in a workplace environment, the person who is quiet quitting is not going to exert the maximum amount of effort to get the maximum amount of reward. They are instead going to do the bare minimum, hence they are quitting. Any demand that they do more than is expected of them as a baseline is seen as exploitative, and it's also seen as unnecessary. Now, there are many different supposed justifications for this practice, but there are a few videos that I want to play for you, two particularly, that sort of reflect the overall Gen Z mindset on this issue. And this is not an anecdote, this is actually borne out from empirical observation. So here are these two videos.
Totally agree with you. Yep. I just say I completely forgot it's payday. This is great.
When an employee only does what's required, it's called quiet quitting. No, it's called doing your job. If I'm supposed to go above and beyond, then so should my pay. Don't expect something for nothing, right? Or does that only apply to poor people? Yeah, my employees show up every day, but they don't dress up like Santa Claus and bring me toys, so they're lazy. You're lucky that an employee does their job. I've done so little at work before that it wasn't even quietly quitting. It was technically robbing.
All right, so as you saw there is this sense of injustice that quiet quitters say they are experiencing, which brings about their quiet quitting. Now, according to Gallup, about 50% of the United States workforce is actually engaged in this practice. And when they break it down to subcategories, what is even more concerning is that a lot of the people who are engaged in this practice are Gen Z. Now, what's very interesting is that pre-pandemic, before COVID-19, younger folks in Gen Z were actually quite excited and more excited to go pursue their jobs, according to that same Gallup survey. But post-pandemic, there is now a desire, a tendency to quiet quit. Now, there have been many different critiques of quiet quitting. Some have called it laziness, others have called it ignorance, others have called it subsistence, or whatever you want to call it. But there's one problem with this practice that many people are not talking about, and this is the problem of human potential. So, my friends, every human being, by virtue of their existence, possesses potential. Potential is the distance between where you are now and where you could be. That's all potential is. What could you do in this lifetime that you have not done yet? It is something waiting to be realized, a vision that requires action to be realized. And philosophers throughout history have talked about this concept of human potential. Some, like Aristotle, have used human potential as a means of establishing their moral philosophy by saying that what is important for us to do is to cultivate good character and cultivate virtue, and hence that should be the object of our life. And others have simply used potential as a sort of barometer for human success. Human beings are successful if they're chasing their potential. But what is more important than anything else, regardless of your particular viewpoint or your particular philosophical idea of human potential, what is important is that it exists. And what is also important is that if people don't pursue and achieve their potential, they are not living as full a life as they could have. Now, there are many different tools that we can use to achieve our potential. One of those tools, of course, is capitalism. Now, and this is where it becomes contentious, because a lot of the quiet quitters actually decry the supposed injustice of the capitalist system. The idea is that when you put all of this effort in, you're actually making someone else richer, you're making someone else better off, whereas you remain in the same spot that you are. Therefore, exerting a lot of effort does not benefit you as much as it benefits the person who actually employs you. This has parallels to the argument that Karl Marx made about surplus value. The idea that you as a worker working, you get value, you get paid, but the person who hires you, they get a bigger value because they put in less work than you, but they get more value than you. And inevitably, according to Marxists, this is an injustice. Just like the myth of surplus value, this idea that working harder allows people who are in control of you, or who are your bosses, or who are doing different types of work, to work less and get rich off of your back is equally fallacious. Why so? Very simple. The problem with the surplus value theory is that it doesn't account for the kind of work that your boss or the head of the corporation does. They certainly do work, and in fact, they have more pressures, they have more pains than you, they have more responsibilities than you, they have more things than you to do, even if it may not seem, from your vantage point, to be anything of significance. Think about this. They have a board of people they have to please in order to keep their livelihood, and that comes with a lot of different implications. Similarly, just because you have a company increasing their bottom line because you're a good worker, well, that's great, but what about the other costs they have to face? What about the social costs they have to face if they're a company doing something that is not particularly socially popular? And this is why we're kind of seeing ESG come into the fray and actually dictate the actions of corporations. What about the financial costs they have to face when they have to pay you, they have to give you benefits, if they give you benefits, they've got to keep cost up. What about all these different costs? As the worker, you actually have an advantage because you completely and utterly possess your own labor, and you're able to use your labor in whatever context you want to use your labor. Whereas someone who is deep-seated in an institution like a corporation, like a CEO or a vice president, has more to use than you because they're not in a transitory position. They are in a long-standing position. This is what people who embrace these kind of emotional responses and half-hearted analysis of the structure of things don't understand. And this is what quiet quitters don't understand. When you work hard, you are not merely working to enrich someone else, even though that is, your work may be having that kind of effect in most circumstances. You're also working to actualize your human potential. And you actualize your human potential through capitalism because capitalism allows you to trade values. And values are the most important currency that human beings have because values allow us to perpetuate society and maintain good relationships. And we can better pursue our human potential if we are in a context in which we have good relationships and we have other kind of bonds and ties that make life more expedient. But when you engage in quiet quitting, not only are you saying, I will not do this task here, you're also saying to yourself, I will not exert myself to the highest boundaries of what I can do because it may help someone else. No matter what you do in life, no matter where you go in life, your actions will always have some kind of effect on other people, even if it is in an implicit and indirect way. The duty then for you as a rational human being in a social context is to figure out what kind of connections you want to have as a person and to figure out what kind of actions are best that fit your character and fit your goals, as opposed to running away from the entire thing, putting your hands up and simply saying, well, I'm not getting what I think I should be getting out of this, therefore I'm going to not put in the work. You're doing a disservice to yourself. Human potential is the most important thing that any of us have. And while I believe, unlike Aristotle, that there's much more to morality than simply chasing your potential is still very important. And capitalism lets you do that by being in complete control over your wage and being able to enter into voluntary relationships with other people and being able to withdraw from those relationships all the same, being able to create your own value in your own enterprise and then to create value for others through that mechanism. There are just so many different things. The human will is so dynamic. There are so many different things that a human being of raw potential, especially someone in my generation, Gen Z, a younger person, can do in this world where so many limits and boundaries that used to be here are no longer here. But quiet quitting lets you just sit back and say, you know what? That potential thing, that character thing, understanding and appreciating the dynamics of social context, all of that stuff is secondary to how I feel. And this is the second problem, last problem I'll present with quiet quitting, is that it enslaves you to your passions. It is a fact that all human beings will at one point in time, in some point in time, feel as if they are unsatisfied with life. Dissatisfaction is an emotion that all human beings at some point in time feel, but it is certainly an emotion that is influenced and informed by what we've been exposed to, the reference points we've been exposed to. So you can't be dissatisfied about something that you've never experienced in the first place, or that you've never entered into your mind, which is why it's very important to protect the minds of the innocent and the young, because they can become dissatisfied about the wrong thing and then push towards a different direction by folks with evil, ulterior motives to chase those things. But allowing dissatisfaction to overtake the whole of your humanity is allowing your humanity to be reduced to its most primitive state, to be reduced to an individual who cannot act or think beyond that raw emotion. And a human being not thinking beyond raw emotion is not someone who is using their rational faculties, and that is not someone who, in a context of quiet quitting or otherwise, will be able to do anything productive other than perpetually exist in an emotional state. It's about time that we understand the dynamics of human nature, appreciate our emotions, but also keep them in check, and don't let them hold us back from our potential. If you embrace quiet quitting, you are very most likely letting your emotions holding you back from your potential, or if you're not letting your emotions do so, you're letting flawed ideas and misunderstandings of institutions and cost and benefit hold you back from your potential. And if that's not what's holding you back from your potential, you're letting ignorance of your nature as a human being and your position as a laborer hold you back from your potential. Regardless of if any of these paths apply to you, or if any of these things are true, or if none of these things are true, regardless of any of it, it is very important that none of us embrace quiet quitting, but we instead embrace perseverance and perpetuation of good habits, because those two things will set you on the right path almost every time. All right, my friends, I love you guys so much. If you love me, please be sure to go to my Patreon and support me. Please be sure to go down in the comment section, leave a comment, leave a like, share the video, subscribe to this channel. I love you guys so much, and please stay pensive.